Hello BookTube, Aaron here. I hope you're doing very well and welcome to another Poetry Thursday. I've been really bad with my Poetry Thursdays this year and I've just kept on thinking and thinking about ways to approach it, which poets to talk about. And something I've been thinking about recently has been, and I've done it every now and then, is to do this, to have the book out in front of us here. I'm going to choose some poems to read and I'll have the book open and we can just read them together like that. And I was just watching the channel Ear Read This, and he had a video about the, what would it be now, the 60th anniversary of Ariel by Sylvia Plath. And so I thought that would just be a great way to spend our Poetry Thursday, to open up Ariel and read a few poems from it. And it's got some of my favourite poems of all time in it, so I thought we'd jump right in. And I'm going to read 3 poems, hopefully giving a taste of the few different, I suppose the different tones of different poems from within Ariel. So let's jump right in. I thought I'd start with how we'd begin Ariel, with the opening poem. So there's a nice cat there. That's to counter some of the darkness that we'll be that we'll be encountering. So let's start off with Morning Song, which is the inaugural poem of Ariel. Morning Song. Love set you going like a fat gold watch. The midwife slapped your foot soles, and your bald cry took its place among the elements. Our voices echo, magnifying your arrival. New statue. In a drafty museum, your nakedness shadows our safety. We stand round blankly as walls. I'm no more your mother than the cloud that distills a mirror to reflect its own slow effacement at the wind's hand. All night your moth breath flickers among the flat pink roses. I wake to listen. A far sea moves in my ear. One cry, and I stumble from bed, cow-heavy and floral in my Victorian nightgown. Your mouth opens clean as a cat's. The window square whitens and swallows its dull stars. And now you try your handful of notes. The clear vowels rise like balloons. So just really lovely, and it in parts quite bleak. Well, really the whole poem is quite bleak in a way. This total disconnection that a new mother is feeling towards towards her newborn. We stand around blankly as walls, which is a really a great description of I mean, even if it was just that's kind of what it feels like, I suppose, the first week or so after having a baby, at least in terms of energy. But this stanza here is one of my favourite stanzas in all of Sylvia Plath's poetry. I am no more your mother than the cloud that distills a mirror to reflect its own slow effacement at the wind's hand. And so there's this sense of temporariness, this sense that in a way she can affect the life of this other, of this newborn, but it's only temporary, and it's somehow not necessarily a cause of her own transience and her own disappearance, or but it's it's a way that it's made visible and made present, if that makes sense, right? So the cloud can see, or the slow disappearing of the cloud is seen in the mirror, and the cloud would still move on and disappear without it. And maybe it's a nice thing for just running with this metaphor in a really weird way. Maybe it's a nice thing that the moisture from the cloud is distilled on the mirror, and maybe it's good that there's that small connection, but that's all there is, and there's still that visible proof of change and of distance and of temporariness, and the moth breath of the baby, which again is a lovely image. And yeah, the other image I love, the window square whitens and swallows its dull stars. So yeah, that night feed turning into an early morning. And yeah, I mean, I just love this poem. Formally, we have this pattern introduced with the first two stanzas. So we have these what do you call them, like tercets. So we have 3 lines per stanza, and this middle line here is longer, and then it's inverted here, and then the pattern kind of continues, but then doesn't continue here. Instead, we have the long lines in the middle twice, and then the shorter lines in the middle towards the end, which to me kind of suggests that the disconnect, that the symmetry that's introduced and is then expected breaks off and becomes something else. I don't think a completely hopeless poem, but in terms of its outlook, but bleaker than you'd expect maybe for the subject matter, but very real, and I'm sure a lot of new mothers would find elements of it really relatable. So anyway, I can't necessarily go on for so long about every poem, because I've got another 2 that I'd like to read you. The next is one of my favourites as well. Let's make sure we've got the right page. Here we go. Lady Lazarus. So one of the most famous poems in the collection. One of the poems I think gets her into trouble, and we'll see that, and we can maybe chat about it a bit. Maybe I'll leave the cat in the background. So let's go with Lady Lazarus. Lady Lazarus. I have done it again. 1 year in every 10 I manage it. A sort of walking miracle. My skin bright as a Nazi lampshade. My right foot a paperweight. My face a featureless, fine Jew linen. Peel off the napkin, oh my enemy. Do I terrify? The nose, the eye pits, the full set of teeth, the sour breath will vanish in a day. Soon, soon the flesh, the grave cave 8 will be at home on me, and I a smiling woman. I am only 30, and like the cat, I have 9 times to die. This is number 3. What a trash to annihilate each decade. What a million filaments the peanut crunching crowd shoves in to see them unwrap me hand and foot. The big strip tease. Gentlemen, ladies, these are my hands, my knees. I may be skin and bone. Nevertheless, I am the same identical woman. The first time it happened, I was 10. It was an accident. The second time I meant to last it out and not come back at all, I rocked shut as a seashell. They had to call and and pick the worms off me like sticky pearls. Dying is an art, like everything else. I do it exceptionally well. I do it so it feels like hell. I do it so it feels real. I guess you could say I've a call. It's easy enough to do it in a cell. It's easy enough to do it and stay put. It's the theatrical comeback in broad day to the same place, the same face, the same brute, amused shouts, a miracle that knocks me out. There is a change for the eyeing of my scars. There is a charge for the eyeing of my scars. There is a charge for the hearing of my heart. It really goes. And there is a charge, a very large charge, for a word or a touch or a bit of blood or a piece of my hair or my clothes. So, Herr Doctor, so, Herr Enemy, I am your opus. I am your valuable, the pure gold baby that melts to a shriek. I turn and burn. Do not think I underestimate your great concern. Ash, ash, you poke and stir. Flesh, bone, there is nothing there. A cake of soap, a wedding ring, a gold filling. Herr God, Herr Lucifer, beware, beware. Out of the ash I rise with my red hair, and I eat men like air. So that's Lady Lazarus. I prefer it to Daddy, which is really the other big poem in Ariel that appropriates this sort of these images inspired by the Second World War and the Holocaust and the Nazis, and I think it's more a sort of Gestapo thing going on in Daddy. Yeah, that's sort of part of what some people take umbrage with this poem is the some people would say it was an appropriation of of Holocaust imagery of the Jewish experience. Maybe others would say that it is an act of empathy and of fellow feeling, and that experience is experience, and it's a way to bridge it. I'm not sure where I kind of stand. I still feel a little uncomfortable, particularly the line at the beginning, fine Jew linen. Yeah, I'm on the fence, I suppose. But just such an incredible, just the way it sounds, the feeling of the poem. I know I messed it up a few times. To me, this is proof rock era T.S. Eliot, but just incredibly distilled. Both the sort of unease of some of the images in proof rock. That there is there are a few images and a few things in proof rock that sort of when you stop and think about them are quite disturbing, and that's just compressed and intensified, as is the language, particularly at the end, I turn and burn. Do not think I underestimate your great concern. That could be straight out of proof rock, and yet all of this really close compressed rhyming, and yet she manages to make it own and her own, and I think it is that compression, particularly at the end, a cake of soap, a wedding ring, a gold filling, Herr God, Herr Lucifer, beware, beware. Out of the ash I rise with my red hair, and I eat men like air. As you can see in a past reading, I just circled that maybe the first time I read it, or one of the first times I read it. Anyway, I've got one more poem to read you, and I thought I'd read one from a little later on in the collection that gives us it's actually the kind of poem that sticks in my head after finishing Ariel. Every time I read it, it's these slightly more nocturnal, quiet but still quite dark poems that stay with me. And I've decided to go with the moon in the yew tree. There's also Little Fugue, which is similar and carries a lot of the same images. And essentially, Sylvia, she set herself a writing exercise. I think when she was kind of a bit blocked, to just look out the window and write what she sees, and that's what she's doing here in this poem, "The Moon in the and the Yew Tree," but is evidently transferring quite a lot, if that's the right word, onto the scenery out of the window. So let's finish off with this one, "The Moon and the Yew Tree." This is the light of the mind, cold and planetary. The trees of the mind are black, the light is blue. The grasses unload their griefs on my feet as if I were God, prickling my ankles and murmuring of their humility. Fumy, spiritus mists inhabit this place, separated from my house by a row of headstones. I simply cannot see where there is to get to. The moon is no door. It is a face in its own right, white as a knuckle and terribly upset. It drags the sea after it like a dark crime. It is quiet, with the O gape of complete despair. I live here. Twice on Sunday the bells startle the sky, 8 great tongues affirming the resurrection. At the end, they soberly bong out their names. The yew tree points up. It has a Gothic shape. The eyes lift after it and find the moon. The moon is my mother. She is not sweet like Mary. Her blue garments unloose small bats and owls. How I would like to believe in tenderness. The face of the effigy, gentled by candles, bending, on me in particular, its mild eyes. I have fallen a long way. Clouds are flowering, blue and mystical over the face of the stars. Inside the church, the saints will all be blue, floating on their delicate feet over the cold pews, their hands and faces stiff with holiness. The moon sees nothing of this. She is bald and wild, and the message of the yew tree is blackness, blackness and silence. So to me, a much calmer poem than something like Lady Lazarus. It's got that dark, kind of gothic edge to it, which is quite fun, with the bats and the owls and the churchyard and the gothic shape of the yew tree, like like a church spire as well. And I just love the simplicity of it, of the colour blue, and of the associations made there. And again, this feeling, maybe something that kind of bridges between Morning Song and this poem, that maybe feels a little more authentic than a poem like Lady Lazarus. It's this feeling of disconnection. So in this poem, she's saying that she's fallen away. She cannot see. What's the line from? Yeah, I simply cannot see where there is to get to. So this feeling of being cut off or of not knowing what to do. Not necessarily being the same feeling as in morning song, but certainly an equivalent feeling, and I just love the way that she's using um, this landscape to sort of work out some of this feeling. And then there's, I think, almost a resolution in the blackness and the silence of the yew tree, it being something for her just to focus her mind on, and her being able to settle into a kind of silence and some kind of rest almost. Maybe a dark and gothic kind of rest, but a rest nonetheless. And there we go. I'll leave it there. Maybe one of the other reasons I picked this is, just for the shape it has on the page. Many of the, there's still some quite short-lined poems in Ariel, but it often surprises me actually that there are still quite a few poems that fill up the page a fair bit, like this one. So I'll leave it there. So let me know if you're a fan of Sylvia Plath. She's one of my go-to poets that I'm perennially coming back to and revisiting, reassessing. And I thought it'd just be a nice way to mark the anniversary of Ariel this year, turning 60 years old. And hopefully, if you're not too versed up on Sylvia Plath and on Ariel in particular, hopefully that gives you a nice little taste of what's in here, and what you can expect. It's dark, but there are these quiet moments of beauty and of honesty in there as well. And so, it's always a rewarding experience to go in there. So I'll leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. Happy Poetry Thursday, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye.